Welcome to Twin Hostels. I'm your host, Joe Chap, and today we'll be talking about the Detroit Lions rookies, rookie training camp. Rookies will report to training camp next week. We're going to talk about all the rookies and go down the line and kind of see what we expect from them. And if you expect different, please let me know below. And if you're new to the channel, subscribe. I will keep you entertained with Lions content throughout the year, and Red Wings content, Tigers content, Pistons content, Michigan State content, and some national content. So stay tuned to that. Now, I think it's interesting that the Lions have 8 rookies that they drafted. And they got Jahmyr Gibbs, they got Jack Campbell, Brian Branch, Sam Laporta. I'm not naming them in order. Kobe Solsdal, Broderick Martin, Antoine Green. I don't think I'm forgetting one, but I might be. Anyways, so when you look at the Detroit Lions and you look at their team, it's very different from years of past. In years past, we have put rookies into the game when they weren't entirely ready, such as last year with Malcolm Rodriguez. Obviously, he was good to start the year, but you could tell that he wasn't ready for it, and they could have brought him around. They could have brought him, slowly along if they had a better depth pool, but they didn't. They were young, and besides Alex Anzalone, there was not much there besides Derek Barnes, who was also struggling. So when you look at the Detroit Lions, I think it's incredible to note what Brad Holmes did with all these picks. Let's just put it that way. So what Brad Holmes did with every one of these picks is he safeguarded them. And what do I mean by safeguarded? Jack Campbell doesn't have to come into the Detroit Lions defense and linebacking crew and start week 1. Jahmyr Gibbs is not going to start for the Detroit Lions. He's going to be a very big weapon for the Detroit Lions, but he won't be asked to go on the down to down kind of back. He's not going to be asked to do that. Broderick Martin, he's not going to be asked to start. Brian Branch, he can learn from Chauncey Gardner-Johnson. Colby Swordsdal, he's not going to be asked to start on the offensive line, barring injury. All this is barring injury, obviously. Antoine Green, same thing. I mean, with the J-Mo suspension, maybe he could force his way up, but besides that, no. So when you look at the Detroit Lions, what Brad Holmes did with this rookie class is he safeguarded them. And thank God he did, because week 1, you go to play Kansas City. And I don't care who you are and what you believe, Patrick Mahomes is a freak show. Absolute one of the best quarterbacks we have in this league. Easily. So keeping guys like Brian Branch off the field, Jack Campbell off the field, kind of pushing them along slowly. They don't have to go in week 1 and be a huge spot on the defense. You could just slowly ease them along, get them in the game plan, kind of figure out what their strengths and weaknesses are, and work from that. And they have all preseason to wait figure out those strengths and weaknesses, and they can go by that. But I love what Brad Holmes did with that. And when I mean safeguarding, obviously, when you talk about Detroit Lions teams of past, usually, very usually, the defense is, or the draft picks that they put on the field, they're asked to go in there and they're asked to play a majority of the games. So when I look at this Detroit Lions team, I like what Brad Holmes did safeguarding. Every player that they drafted has a better player in front of them. This is how you really want to build a team and a consistent winner, is if you have good players in front of them that, you're not saying you're going to start from week 1 because we need you. You're going to say you'll earn your spot, you'll ease your way up, and if where the chips lie, the chips lie. So let's talk about Jahmyr Gibbs. Jahmyr Gibbs, I have a high hope for. I think Jahmyr Gibbs is going to be an excellent player. I think when you look at Jahmyr Gibbs and you look at his season at Alabama, it was a little bit underwhelming for the most part. He wasn't as good as he was with Georgia Tech. And if you didn't watch him at Georgia Tech, I understand. Georgia Tech is kind of like a kind of shitty team to watch. Let's be honest. That's why he transferred to Alabama. But when I look at Jahmyr Gibbs, there's a lot of players that I can kind of identify where he can kind of fit in and be a playmaker with this team. And with J-Mo out for the first 6 weeks, it's going to be imperative that he is put in the best spots to succeed. And with Ben Johnson back, Jared Goff, Ben Johnson, that little tandem they got, they can put Jahmyr Gibbs in the best spots to succeed. So when I look at Jahmyr Gibbs, Will Birchfield of 97 won the ticket had a great tweet, and I thought I had to bring it up. He said, "Rookie year, McCaffrey, 113 targets, 117 carries. Panthers bell cow, Jonathan Stewart, 198 carries. Rookie year, Alvin Kamara, 100 targets, 120 carries. Saints bell cow, Mark Ingram, 230 carries. Rookie year, Gibbs should be similar weapon with Dave Montgomery serving as the Lions bell cow." And that's what I mean by safeguards. Okay, the best teams bring their players along slowly. Obviously, when you talk about needing the player to contribute right away, that's a totally different situation. But when you have the opportunity to put a guy like David Montgomery in front of Jameer Gibbs, you have guys like Alex Anzalone and Derek Barnes and Malcolm Rodriguez in front of Jack Campbell. It's a good situation to be in, and it kind of keeps tread off their tires. And then if you do go on a deep run, let's say you go to the playoffs, that guy is very he's fresh. He's not getting worn out, because this is a long season compared to what they played in college. So you don't want to wear him down. You're trying to keep him zoned in. And I like that tweet because you can see that Alvin Kamara, Christian McCaffrey, and Jameer Gibbs, they could be on a similar plan because they have a running back in front of them that can kind of study the load while they go in there for specialty options, out of the backfield. Maybe they're running a toss sweep here, just trying to go play the matchup game, because you can play the matchup game with a guy like Jameer Gibbs. You can play the matchup game with a guy like Christian McCaffrey and Alvin Kamara. So that's a great opportunity for Jameer Gibbs because he's not going to be asked to play all the time. One of the things that has really plagued Saquon Barkley in New York is he's asked to play all the time, and he's been hurt because he simply is the team in New York. So that's what you have to worry about, and I think that's what Brad Holmes did a great job of safeguarding Jameer Gibbs. So on Jack Campbell, Jack Campbell was drafted in the first round. I don't think a lot of people thought Jack Campbell would be drafted in the first round. I'm going to be totally honest. I think people were like, "Whoa, we drafted Jack Campbell in the first round." Yeah, because I think a lot of people would be like, okay, if you could redo the draft and Brian Branch went where Jack Campbell was and Jack Campbell went where Brian Branch was, you wouldn't have nothing to say. So just keep that in mind. So Jack Campbell he's going to be a good linebacker, but linebacker in the NFL week 1 going against Patrick Mahomes, you're going to be able to bring him along slowly, and I think that's crucial too. Because I know people don't like Alex Anzalone, but he can study the load. You'd rather have a guy who's an NFL veteran than a guy who's an inexperienced rookie going his first game is going to be going in live action against one of the best quarterbacks the league has ever seen in Patrick Mahomes. It's just not a good situation. So another reason that I said Brad Holmes did a great job of safeguarding these rookies this is exactly what I'm talking about. He's not going to be asked to go in there and play Patrick Mahomes week 1. If he earns the opportunity in training camp, he will absolutely get the opportunity. But he's got to earn it, and Dan Campbell and Aaron Glenn are going to be very, very keeled because they know what lies ahead in week 1. And obviously, you know exactly who you're dealing with Patrick Mahomes. Sam Laporta. Now, Sam Laporta is going to be one of the only rookies that's probably going to be starting from the jump. Okay, so this is one of the only ones, guys. This is the only one that he didn't. You could obviously put Brock Wright in there and Zylstra, but Sam Laporta is probably going to start week 1, so I would keep that in mind. But Sam Laporta is going to be a great tight end for the Detroit Lions. I think if you look at Sam Laporta and you look at the quarterback he played with in college, you have to look at that quarterback. I mean, that was one of the worst quarterbacks I've ever seen. Spencer Petras was absolutely awful. So Sam Laporta doing what he did with a guy like that, pretty impressive. It's like your 2-year-old kid throwing you 1,000 yards. Like, okay, you're probably gonna have to shoulder that load. So when I look at the Sam Laporta, he's definitely gonna get the opportunity from the jump, but he's going to be needed because with JMO out for the first 6 weeks, they're going to need that offensive weapon in place of JMO. So Sam Laporta, Jameer Gibbs, we're both going to need them at some point on the offense. So it's good that Brad Holmes kind of put the safeguards in place in front of Jameer Gibbs so he's not shouldering the load. And Sam Laporta is more than capable to start week 1, I think. I think Sam Laporta is going to be a really good player. And I think you're going to realize that really quickly with the Detroit Lions. So we go to Brian Branch. Now, Brian Branch is the guy that I think could be fantastic because he's going to be the player that's playing in front of him is the eighth best safety per ESPN front office people, coaches, and general managers ranked Chauncey Gardner-Johnson the eighth best safety in the NFL. So Brian Branch is going to get a crash lesson on how to be a great safety in the NFL from one of the league's best. He's going to have Kirby Joseph. He's going to have Tracy Walker. He's not going to be asked to do much. He might come in for some slot, sub cornerback packages. He might come in for, on rundowns to maybe be close to the line of scrimmage and maybe guard against a pass. But realistically, I don't expect much from Brian Branch this year. And with Chauncey Gardner-Johnson being on a 1-year deal, unless the safeties get ravaged with injury, it's probably best if Brian Branch learns from Chauncey Gardner-Johnson year one, and that's probably the best person you can learn from. And that's another safeguard that I was talking about with Mr. Brad Holmes. He puts a safeguard in place with Chauncey Gardner-Johnson, and he puts Brian Branch behind him so he can learn off Brian Branch. I mean, he can learn off CJ Gardner-Johnson. So the next one is Broderick Martin. And I feel like when the Detroit Lions drafted Broderick Martin, a lot of people were like, "Who the hell is this guy?" Now I know a lot of people didn't watch Western Kentucky. I know a lot of people just like you got to think about it long and hard. Like you don't even probably know what Western Kentucky is on. But when you go look at the film, you go look at the game plan, look at Broderick Martin. He's kind of a run stopper. He's going to be a run stopper in the NFL. And I look at Broderick Martin kind of like a Snacks Harrison. And he's not going to be asked to play from the hop. You look at Lee McNeil. You look at Isaiah Buggs in front of him, and then you're gonna have guys like Kaminsky, Okwara, Charles Harris, kind of rotate in that D tackle situation because that's what they did last year with some of the bigger defensive ends. They rotated them in next to Lee McNeil for the pass rush, and that worked pretty well when John Kaminsky came back. So I like what I see from the Detroit Lions, especially with Broderick Martin. If you could put him out there on first and second down and say stop the run, with him and Aleem, they could probably do some damage. So I'm looking forward to that because I think Broderick Martin could be a pretty damn good player in the certain situations that he's in. So we have Hendon Hooker, and I'm gonna be totally honest with you. I don't believe Hendon Hooker is going to be a starter in the NFL. I think when you look at the Tennessee offense, I don't know if people watch Tennessee football, but if you watched him from afar and you watched, the way he played, you're probably like, oh my God, Hendon Hooker is great. That offense that they run with Josh Heupel, it's a unique offense. I mean, if you know Michigan football, you know Joe Milton, and he is going to be the starter, and he's favored above J.J. McCarthy in the Heisman race. So that tells you all you need to know about the Josh Heupel experience at Tennessee. That offense, it's from the Baylor tree. So you always got to worry about those quarterbacks because honestly, when you look at a guy from Baylor, you look at those guys that are in that offense, there's very few that kind of make it out alive as a pro quarterback. It's kind of a mixed bag. But I don't fault Brad Holmes for making the whole, try to see if Hendon Hooker has anything, because Hendon Hooker does have a great arm and it's going to be fun to watch, but he won't be ready this year. He might start the year on the pup list, so that will be good for him, but good job by Brad Holmes on that part, because at the worst case, he's not a starter and he's your backup, and that's perfectly fine. So you're making a good decision right there. Sorzadal, he's not going to start. Obviously, Detroit Lions offensive line is going to be really, really good this year. Unless injuries hit, then you'll be forced to put him in. He's more than capable. He's a mauler. He'll fit in He'll fit in good with Jonah Jackson and Frank Ragnow and Penei Sewell and Taylor Decker. So he's going to do really well there, and I think that they will, kind of reap the benefits of that. Antoine Green is the one that I think I wanted to kind of highlight before we end this video, and I kind of give my synopsis on the whole situation. So Antoine Green is a unique player. If you watched him in North Carolina, he was one of Drake May's big time wide receivers, more a red zone target than anything because Josh Downs was on the other side. So Drake May had he had some really decent wide receivers, but Antoine Green I think could be a low key part that potentially could make the roster. I think with JMO out, it could open up the opportunity for Antoine Green to take a spot, and if he does, I think he'll do really good. And I think if you're looking for a comparable to Antoine Green, it's kind of like your Josh Reynolds type. So he's not going to be this amazing player, but he's going to be a useful player that you can use, especially in the red zone. And if Goff develops some chemistry with him, that could be really good until JMO comes back. So all in all, the Detroit Lions rookie class is safeguarded, and a lot of them aren't asked to play right away because they are needed to play. A lot of them will be asked to play when they're ready to play, and that's what makes this team a unique team in my lifetime. Because if you ever looked at the Detroit Lions, they've always, always relied on a rookie to come in and shoulder a load. And this time it is not happening in Detroit, and it's great for the Lions fans because look, as I said before, with Jack Campbell and Brian Branch, it's a good thing that they aren't being thrown to the wolves week one. I mean, unless Jack Campbell really progresses in training camp, look, the last person you want to feed to the wolves is the wolf that they're going to go against in week one, and with Patrick Mahomes. It's kind of all hands on deck with Patrick Mahomes. This is a guy that's so unique, and I can't wait to break this game down because he's so unique, and it's going to be a fun game because I think Jared Goff and that offense can really keep up with Patrick Mahomes. So it'll be really fun to watch. But I think that Patrick Mahomes is gonna win some battles. You just got to win the war. So pushing these guys along, easing them into the game plan could work really, really well for the Detroit Lions. And if you are a Detroit Lions fan and you're upset about Jack Campbell not starting, you're upset about this guy not starting, that's good. Most teams in the NFL, when you have guys that are, um, that they don't start right away, usually it's because there's a better player up ahead. In years past, probably Brian Branch is starting to start the year. And this year, he's pretty low down the depth chart. So it's a good spot for the Detroit Lions rookies to be in. Obviously, they will start camp next week, so we will hear more and more. And obviously, I will bring you every piece of news that I hear on Between the Whistles Detroit, and we will post it to Detroit Lions News. So if you're new to the channel, subscribe below. We'll keep you entertained throughout the Lions season. So please come back and watch the videos because I have a lot of great things coming.